What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the first live episode of the First and 49ers podcast here. Today, we're going to be diving into the season opener versus the Seahawks. And today, I'm joined by a special guest, the host of 49ers Camelot and writer for 49ers Webzone, Marc Adams. Marc, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Cole. How you doing? Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, of course. I'm doing phenomenal. This is the first final week before the first week of the 49ers season and the NFL season. And it's just been a long wait, since the last season didn't go well, only 6 wins. How are you feeling leading up to the 49ers first week?
I feel pretty good. I think they're in a totally different mindset. I think the Super Bowl hangover is a real thing. And really, if you look at the 2 seasons that they've been very injured, 2020 and 2024, both of those seasons came off of a Super Bowl loss. So is that a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe there's something to it, but they just seem to be in a different headspace now. They're more focused. They seem hungry. Where last year it just was a down year, and you had the things like the Brandon Ayuk situation last year. You had injuries. The McCaffrey thing that he didn't practice, and then hey, he's going to be fine, and then the next thing you know, he's out for weeks. So to me, it's just a totally different vibe this season than a year ago.
Yeah, I agree. The vibes are just so different just with the team. And even Kyle Shanahan, I was talking about with my dad just a couple of days ago, how he just seems more like rejuvenated. Just even in the press conferences, you can see it just on his face. And it's all the team are like, they even admitted, even Brock Purdy, I saw him a couple of days ago just talking about how he was trying to force things throughout the entire season, feeling like he had to be that Superman with so many guys injured and everything. But yeah, we got a new vibes in the building this year for the 49ers. And I think we just get in right away. Today, I don't know if you just watched it, but Kyle Shanahan just had a press conference. We get into some of the injury report today. He said Yetur Gross-Matos was not practicing due to a knee injury. Jordan Watkins is not going to practice because of an ankle, which is his high ankle sprain, obvious. And then Juwan Jennings was limited with his calf. Dominic Pooney limited with the knee, and then Jordan James limited with his finger injury. So right there, we saw at the beginning of this week, a lot of Niners were coming back from injury, which is great to see before week 1. But I think the biggest thing here is we could talk about Juwan Jennings back. That was the breaking news on Monday. He was back right after we saw Kendrick Bourne have his meeting with the 49ers. So give me your thoughts on Juwan Jennings back with no contract, and it seems like his calf is miraculously healed now.
Yeah, I think John Lynch said it well, that it can be both things. It can be an injury and a contract issue. That seems to be the case. I just don't think that they're interested in paying another wide receiver big money. And so because of that, I think this is probably going to be Jennings' last season, which stinks because he's one of my favorite players. I love that guy. I love the way he plays. And I mean, you look at 2023, he barely caught any passes the whole season, and then had a much better postseason, especially in the Super Bowl. But I mean, what he does in the run game is unbelievable. He's the best blocking wide receiver in the league. And so I'm glad that he's back. It would have been much more nerve-wracking to see him on the sideline on Sunday in Seattle, but yeah, glad to see him back. I'm not surprised that they're holding him out today. I think that's more precautionary, just ease him back in. Same thing with Dominic Pooney. But I think both seem to be like they're ready to go on Sunday. Kyle Shanahan said that he believes that Jennings will play Sunday, so I think it's good to go. And I'm really glad. Man, if it would have been just Ricky Pearsall and then the other guys behind, I mean, here's who they have most likely on Sunday: Pearsall, Jennings, Russell Gage, Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore. So if you take Juwan Jennings out of that and you have Pearsall, Gage, Sky Moore, Valdez-Scantling, you're probably going to also have Robbie Chosen if there's no Juwan Jennings. It's just a much better wide receiver room with Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, I agree. I was just about to get into that too, just how we were feeling about the 49ers wide receiver room. And I think it's just a big thing to see now. It kind of seems like it's resolved now with Juwan Jennings back. And even though if he wasn't going to be there on Sunday, I mean, you could still kind of say we have safety blankets in McCaffrey and George Kittle if we were to have those like Robbie Chosen out there still as well. But yeah, it just makes, I think, makes everybody be able to breathe a little bit easier knowing that Jawan Jennings is out there. It might not have a big role on Sunday, but at least we know that he can possibly get some targets now that he is back there, and his calf does seem like it's going to be pretty healthy. So
Yeah, definitely. I feel much better about it with Jennings than I would without. I think it's still a thin room. Um, and you look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling, like I don't know what he's going to know in terms of routes run. I think that he can do a good job taking the top off, but how effective is he going to be? Sky Moore, I think he's going to probably be more special teams. Maybe they do some gadget stuff with him. But then you look at Russell Gage Jr., he's been part of the team throughout training camp and has had a good training camp. So I think that he'll be part of the offense, maybe even before Valdez-Scantling. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, right now, Russell Gage is just on the practice squad, but he's most likely going to be called up, promoted on Sunday.
yeah, that's what Shanahan was just talking about in his conference about an hour ago. He said MVS and Gage both have a shot to be active on Sunday. So I do expect probably Gage to be out there too. And he actually said some good things about Valdez-Scantling, saying how he was with the Saints all last season with Clint Kubiak, who's now on the Seahawks. And then he was just with the Seahawks this whole preseason, offseason, and everything. So he kind of, for the most part, knows the same offense that Shanahan runs, just the terminology and everything. And he was saying that he's been able to pick up a lot of things pretty quick in practices there. So, but yeah, I agree. I think he's more of like
that's a good point.
Yeah, take the top off kind of guy.
Yeah, I forgot that he's been that he spent some time in the Shanahan offense. So that does make me feel
Including
better.
Green Bay as well, actually, his first couple
Yeah,
of years.
yeah, that's another good point.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, we just talked about Russell Gage and all them. So, in the 49ers wide receiver core, let's get into a little bit more of the game plan for the 49ers this Sunday against the Seahawks. What do you think the 49ers game plan is going to be for week 1?
I think it's going to be run, throw it to Kittle, run again. I just feel like they have to reestablish the run game. This team, when they play, I'm not really counting so much 2023 because it just seemed like they threw the ball more in 2023 than they had. But leading up to that season, this team was a run the ball and play great defense. Last year, they couldn't run the ball and they couldn't stop the run. And so the defense was terrible. And they had a terrible defensive coordinator who couldn't make any adjustments. And so I think with Robert Saleh back, I think that the game plan is going to be reestablish that run game, which isn't going to be easy because the meat of Seattle's defense is right up the middle. And so it's going to be hard to do some of that. But if they can get them moving sideline to sideline and maybe wear them out, a lot of that stuff where they, run outside, the zone stuff that they do, I think that they can have some success there and really establish that. I mean, this team is totally different. When they run the ball 30 times a game, they almost never lose. And so when they throw more than they run, they lose about twice as often as they win. When they run the ball more than they throw, it's it's a huge. I think I looked it up. It's like 40-6 or something like that. Now you can make statistics say whatever you want them to say, and so I said this on the Red and Bold show that I do with Anthony Robertson the other day, and somebody who was in our chat said. So that's misleading because in games where they're blowing people out, they're going to run the ball more. Yeah, I mean, that's true, but how often are they actually, blowing people out where they can just run the ball? Exactly. And also, doesn't the fan base complain that whenever they get up, Kyle stops running the ball? So I don't know how misleading that is, but clearly when they run, that's the secret to their success. And that's going to be fun to watch Brock Purdy throw into Juwan and throw into Ricky Pearsall. But I think a heavy dose of George Kittle, who Seattle still hasn't figured out how to guard. And and a heavy dose of the running game. And I'm talking Christian McCaffrey, Brian Robinson, a good 1-2 punch. I think that's going to be the recipe for success on Sunday, and then play great defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that, especially like that's the 49ers kind of MO is the run game, the Shanahan offense. Everything relies on the run, like the pass, the play options and everything like that. So that was kind of my next thing about talking about Christian McCaffrey and Brian Robinson. Do you think, especially not just this game, but the whole year, do you think the 49ers are going to be able to kind of manage Christian McCaffrey and give more of those snaps to Brian Robinson, like unlike how we've seen in the past where McCaffrey's gotten like almost 95% of the rush attempts, in all these games?
Yeah. I think if you go back to 2023, I wonder if Kyle Shanahan's plan was to use Elijah Mitchell more, but Mitchell was hurt most of that season, and so that never, because we know that Kyle loved Elijah Mitchell. So did Bobby Turner. The
Mhm.
guy's never fumbled in his entire NFL career. That's one reason they like him. They also like him because he does the right thing. And now he doesn't have McCaffrey's talent, but they really trusted that guy a lot. And part of it's because when he was a rookie, when was that? 2021, I think.
In 20,
When he was a rookie, that Raheem Mostert got hurt in the first game of the season, and Mitchell had to carry the load, and he was great. So I think that they really were high on Brian Robinson before they even considered bringing him on. So I think that we might see that more. Bobby Turner's talked about it a little bit. Kyle Shanahan's talked about it a little bit, but they also mentioned it's hard to get McCaffrey off the field. He doesn't want to come off the field, and he's so good that you don't want to bring him off the field, but really they need him to be healthy come postseason time. So once the clock strikes 2026, McCaffrey needs to be healthy, because if they make the playoffs, and I think that they will, then they really need him. So to me, they're going to have to use Brian Robinson a lot, and I hope that they do.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's definitely. I think this is almost the first time the Niners have two running back ones essentially on their roster now with Brian Robinson. And the dude's a bruiser too. So if you put him in like the short yardage situations, like where McCaffrey could essentially get beat up a lot of the time and him going up the middle, I think that's just a great acquisition there with Brian
Yeah.
Robinson.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then it'll be interesting to see what they do with Jordan James. What are they going to do with,
Garendo.
Isaac Garendo? I really, I wasn't surprised when they traded for Brian Robinson. I was like, okay, he's going to be RB2. But a lot of people, I think Matt Barrows was one of them, saying Isaac Garendo's RB2 and Brian Robinson's going to be RB3 with a chance to overtake that spot. I didn't see it that way. And then Kyle came out and said, our plan is for him to be RB2. And to me, that just makes sense. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Garendo. He's just not the kind of running back that they normally employ. But if they could figure out how to use him in the passing game, I think that guy could be dangerous.
Yeah, he's got the speed and everything. I think one of the biggest things for Garendo and like a lot of the Niners is just the injury proneness almost. He's been injured
Yeah.
a lot of the time last year. And I think it just, obviously makes sense having Robinson come in as the running back one from Washington to be running back two for the Niners. So I did see that kind of happening, him being called up to be running back two for the 49ers. And I did see actually on the unofficial depth chart, they have Garendo also listed as a kick returner. So I don't know if that's just for being the unofficial depth chart or not, but we could maybe see him take back some kicks this year. I don't know.
Yeah, he did that last year. And it didn't really look special,
Yeah.
but if he finds a seam and gets into the open field, then he can do some damage. But it's going to be fun to see how they use him. Are they going to use Sky Moore back there as well? We know that he's going to be the punt returner, but I'm interested to see how they line up the different things. Special teams. is going to be a lot more fun to watch because it's been abysmal the last few years.
Mhm.
And so this year they seem to have a plan, and they definitely have a really good special teams coach. They've placed more emphasis on it, and so I think they'll be better.
Yeah, I agree there. Moving forward a little bit, talking about kind of on the enemy side, enemy lines kind of side of things here about Sam Darnold. Do you think he's going to be able to take advantage of the time he had with the Niners and obviously what he did last year with the Vikings beating the 49ers? Do you think he's going to be able to kind of dissect the 49ers defense like he kind of did last season?
Well, for starters, he's not going to have the play caller that he had last season.
Mhm.
That coach in Minnesota is really good.
Evan O'Connell,
Eh,
yeah.
yeah, so he's not going to have him. He's not going to have Justin Jefferson and some of the weapons that he had. He's going to have a good run game, but not quite the weapons that he had. So with this being his first game with Seattle, I'm not sure what to expect. I think that he could have some success, but I think that Robert Saleh could put enough pressure on him to. I'm not going to say that he's going to get him to where he's seeing ghosts again, but I think that he could put enough pressure on him to force him to make some mistakes. And so we'll have to see what happens there because I think that Sam Darnold is a good quarterback, but even last year he started hot and then kind of went back to his normal ways, later in the season, and essentially lost his job because they chose not to bring him back. So, yeah, I think, or they traded him. Did they traded him? Right? Is that
Traded him, yeah,
yeah?
because I think he kind of was weighing his options, and I think he decided to go somewhere else. But
Yeah. So, um, I don't know if they really wanted him, but decided, hey, we don't want to pay him, or if they decided, I think we're better off without him.
mhm.
I'm not really sure, but I like Sam Darnold. I mean, I remember that Christmas game against Baltimore where Brock Purdy was just horrible in 2023 and threw like 4 interceptions, and they were getting blown out. And Darnold came in and he started bringing them back, and so I think that I think that he's really good, but I also think that you can get him to make a lot of mistakes, and hopefully we'll see that. Hopefully Robert Saleh is able to confuse him.
Yeah, I agree. I think once you are able to kind of rattle him a little bit, get the pressure going on the defensive line, then you kind of start seeing the old Sam Darnold kind of come out
Yeah.
again. But yeah, that was going to be my next question a little bit. What do you want to see from Robert Saleh's defense this year? We know it's a lot younger now. It looks like a lot more of the veterans are going to be starting for the 49ers at least week 1. But especially like in the secondary, I think there's a lot of almost question marks kind of.
Yeah, I definitely I think they're going to come out and play like their hair's on fire.
Mhm.
As I said earlier, this team just has a different focus and a different mindset this year. And I think we're going to see that really come through on the defensive side. I think the offense is going to be cool and collected and do what they do, but I think the defense is going to be really intense. I mean, it's hard not to be with Saleh right there on the sideline, but you look at Fred Warner, D Winters. I think those guys are going to be all over the place. Um, but if the first thing they have to do is stop the run, they've got to tackle. They can't be missing tackles like they did last year. That was just horrible. And it was just so weird to see the 49ers defense so bad.
Mhm.
But I expect them to play with a lot of intensity and to be violent. I think they're going to fly to the ball, and those young guys are going to make mistakes, but hopefully as a team they can overcome them. And I don't know it's just going to be a interesting thing because what they're saying that half the crowd or more than half the crowd they're anticipating is going to be 49ers fans. I don't know if that'll be the case,
53%,
but
yeah.
yeah, but based on the ticket sales, that's what it looks like.
Mhm.
And so if that happens, then I mean Sam Darnold could be having trouble here in his own stadium, which would be so weird because that was the stadium that everybody feared
Yeah.
for several years during those Jim Harbaugh days, especially. But it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's what I love, just seeing the 49er fans, like, they travel so well. I mean, we see it the most, like, in Los Angeles, Levi South, but yeah, it's great to see, like, even, like, Seattle, it's saying maybe 53% Niner fans there, so that'd be pretty crazy to see if there was,
Yeah.
like, a flip in the sound there, which would almost seems impossible. But yeah,
Yeah, we may find out if Seattle it actually pumps in volume or pumps in noise to that stadium like we've kind of for years thought, kind of seems like maybe they do because they're just so loud.
yeah, you can't
But
tell the
if
difference.
half that stadium is wearing red, then I definitely think and it's still loud when the 49ers have the ball, then I'm gonna start thinking, okay, they're doing something because we saw that in in 2021 when the 49ers went to LA, beat the Rams in that game to get into the postseason.
Mhm.
And I remember, I think it was Troy Aikman and
Joe Buck,
yeah,
probably?
Joe Buck. They were calling the game. And I remember them going, listen to this crowd. This is a 49ers crowd in Los Angeles. But then at the end in the NFC Championship game, that postseason, the 49ers fans outnumbered the Rams again, but it was really loud for
Right.
when the 49ers had the ball. So it was like they're doing something because this isn't right. But I don't know. Maybe every team does that. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
who
don't think
knows?
they do at Candlestick because I never think Candlestick's that loud. Or, I mean, Levi's is that loud.
Yeah.
Candlestick seemed like it was, but Levi's just has a more corporate feel
No,
to it.
absolutely. Going to the games, it's so weird because you have I have tickets up in like the hot section, so that's where like all the diehard kind of fans
Okay,
are.
yeah.
On like the rich person kind of side, the padded seats and everything, just it seems a lot more corporate, sure. Yeah. But backtracking a little bit, I want to talk about Robert Saleh's defense. I think it's going to be just complete flip of the switch compared to last year. It seems like, especially like the rookies and everything, to have that type of respect for Robert Saleh that it seemed like maybe the players didn't have so much for Sorensen. Obviously, it just didn't seem like just the right fit for the 49ers and what they've been in the past. Saleh brings that rah-rah kind of mentality, and you love seeing Nick Bosa and Fred Warner talk about having him back and how happy they are to have him, especially. But I think the run game for the 49ers defense is going to be a lot better than it was last year because they had the acquisitions like Jordan Jefferson, who's a big guy who's meant to help stop the run. And I think Alfred Collins is supposed to do that a lot, big time from the draft and everything. So I'm excited to see that. And especially just from the preseason, the 49ers looked like they're a lot better tacklers, like you were saying, compared to last season, missing a lot of open field tackles and all that. So I think expect them to be a lot more sound on defense with the tackling and running the ball kind of side of things.
Yeah, and I like that Robert Saleh's not just a raw guy, but he can back it up with knowledge, and I think that he'll be a better defensive coordinator now than he was before. He may not have the talent on defense that he had when he was here last, but I think that he's learned a lot. He definitely is going to have some new wrinkles. I think he may be more aggressive and blitz more. But you got to have that because Mike Singletary was the ultimate raw guy. Nobody can fire up a team like Mike Singletary, but he didn't have the X's and O's, which is strange because he was a Hall of
Good
Fame
player. Yeah.
linebacker for the greatest defense of all time. But he didn't have that X's and O's part of his repertoire,
Mhm.
and Robert Saleh does. So I think that the raw is great, but if you can't back it up with some meat, then
Mhm.
it's just it doesn't last long. The who's got it better than us that Harbaugh did, even that wore thin when they got later in his years, like 2014, when there's injury issues, they're losing games. They weren't used to losing under him. You
Mhm.
had 2013 where there was controversy. Ahmad Brooks had hit a teammate with a beer bottle or something like that.
Wow. I
Um,
remember that.
and Alden Smith, had the DUI, and then they let him play the next day. And I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And so the vibe on that team just was changing over Harbaugh's time. And I don't know that it was him, but there was just something about it where the who's got it better than us was starting to lose some of its luster that it had the first 2 seasons.
Right. That's really interesting stuff. Going back to the unofficial depth chart, were there any kind of surprises that you saw from it? I feel like everything was pretty straightforward, but maybe from the rookie side for me, I think it was the safeties, Jair Brown over Marquise Siegel on the unofficial depth chart. Him and Jason Pinnock were projected to be the starters, and Shanahan talked about it today. I think it was Matt Mayoko asking him. He was like, "So, do you know who the starters for safeties are going to be?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, do you want to tell us?" He's like, "No." So right now it's looking like Jason Pinnock, but we're still unclear if it is going to be Jair Brown or Marquise Siegel. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it probably will be Jair Brown. I think Jason Pinnock is going to be the other one until Malik Mustafa returns. Once Mustafa returns, I'm hopeful that by that time Marquise Siegel will have taken over for Jair Brown, because I think that their best safety combo eventually is going to be Mustafa and Siegel. Jair Brown, I don't know. I mean, as a rookie, he played really well, had an interception in the Super Bowl. But last year, he just wasn't very good. Mm-hmm. And, is that because the defensive coordinator who picked him, and played him as a rookie was no longer there? I don't know. But he was taking bad angles. He was missing tackles. Hopefully he's improved with that. So that's going to be interesting to see. But the only surprises that I remember from as far as like depth chart, roster cut down, is that I was kind of surprised that they cut Dallas Flowers instead of Darrell Luter Jr. I just really thought that Luter was on his way out. He's made some, everybody remembers the Super Bowl when on the punt coverage, when the ball bounced off of him and then Ray McLeod tried to pick it up and run with it. That was a huge turning point, and they probably win that game if that doesn't happen. Now there's no way to say that, but I think most likely they would have won that. And then last season he had another special teams gaffe like that where the ball bounced off of him. So I kind of was surprised there. I was pleasantly surprised that they cut Nick Zakelj and kept Drew Moss. I was glad that they did that because a lot of times, especially with Chris Furster, he really gets these guys like Jake Brendel that he just loves, and he pours a lot into them, and he just sometimes seems reluctant to move on from them in favor of a younger guy. But they did it this time, and so I was pretty happy to see that. But Dallas Flowers had played really well throughout training camp and was running with the ones, partly because Renardo Green was out. So I kind of expected him to make the team, but I mean, he is a journeyman, so that's probably why. And Luter's still a young guy, so maybe the hope is that he'll develop. But so far, he's just shown very little that gets you excited.
Yeah, I agree. I think I talked about it in a couple episodes before on my show. The Drew Moss was the biggest surprise for me, and I was super, super excited to have him and the Niners cutting Nick Zakelj because, like you said, I feel like the Niners tend to lean towards the veterans on offensive line, and it was I think almost they assumed obviously Drew Moss wasn't going to be getting through waivers. And I don't know if you saw Brad Graham, he posted on the SF Niners a lot of the times, like showing Drew Moss, like the things that he was doing in the preseason, and he could potentially become a starter towards maybe the end of the year. So I think the 49ers found a gem there with Drew Moss. And yeah, like you said, I'm excited that they didn't stick with Nick Zakelj over him for sure.
Yeah.
Going to the cornerbacks for the Niners, we have Demo now going to be cornerback 1. Do you think there's going to be some growing pains there? Obviously, he played a little bit on the outside. Travaris Ward was the cornerback 1 last season. So now Demo, he talks the talk, but I think he's going to be able to back up, walk the walk, with this. And his first test, I think, is going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba. How do you think Demo is going to do the first week for the 49ers?
I think he's going to be fine. I think he was essentially the top corner on the team last year because Charvarius Ward was not in the right headspace. He dealt with some injuries, lost his little girl, which was horrible, very sad. But I mean, he recently said that his attitude was bad because he wanted a new contract or something like that, and the 49ers weren't giving it to him.
Yeah.
And so he didn't play very well at all, even before his daughter passed away. Now I don't, maybe her illness led to that, and so I usually try and just call it like I see it. So I praise the guys when they play well, and I'm hard on them when they don't. With Ward, I think early in the season I was kind of riding him some, when I would do my articles. But once his little girl passed away, I just, it doesn't feel right to keep piling on. So,
Right.
and I think that something like that can definitely affect you. But yeah, I think Demo's up for the task. I think that I wondered if they were going to bring him inside and have a couple of corners, on the outside. But I think they're probably going to have him on the outside with Renardo Green on the other side. And I don't know, at the slot, the nickel corner, is it going to be Chase Lucas? Is it going to be Upton Stout? That's going to be an interesting thing to see. I think Chase Lucas played great in training camp. In preseason. Upton Stout was great throughout training camp when he was healthy. So I think that Upton Stout is the kind of guy who can stay with those quick receivers, plus really impact the game, the run defense. So that might give him the edge. But Chase Lucas did great in the preseason. I don't know if he can continue that way, but he looked good.
Yeah, I think the only way I see Chase Lucas starting for week 1 is if the 49ers are just concerned that Upton Stout just didn't have enough practice, going into the season because of his injury. I forgot what it was, ankle or something like that. But I think that's the only way I'd see him not being the starter at nickel for week 1. But yeah, I think he showed a lot of stuff, and that's what they talked about too. Once the pads went on, Upton Stout just got better. And they say usually rookies, when the pads come on, they kind of take a step back a little bit, but he was showing his physicality there. And so yeah, I'm really excited about Upton Stout. And I kind of compared him a little bit to K'Wan Williams. I feel like he was like our last great nickel cornerback, smaller kind of guy, but he was just a dog out there, especially just like on blitzing plays and all that.
Yeah, and I like the mindset. You've got Demo, who's not the biggest guy, but he's a fierce competitor. Upton Stout's that way. Renardo Green seems like he's that way, though he's not quite. He didn't talk quite as much as the other two, but I like the attitude that those guys have back there.
Now, at the beginning of Shanahan's press conference today, he also revealed who the 49ers captains are. So we could get into that just a little bit real quick. He had 8 starters, and all 7 of them returned except for Debo. So we have Fred Warner, Kittle, Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, McCaffrey, Juice, Bosa, and then Diamador Lenore is the new captain for the 49ers this year, taking over for Debo. And I agree with the 49ers. I think it's kind of a given, especially after seeing the 49ers jerseys, the black jerseys coming out, and Demo being on that kind of video and everything, showing that he's going to be one of the faces of the franchise now. And just like you were saying, he talks a lot, and he's a fierce competitor, and he just wants to win out there every day. So I think it's a great thing the Niners named him captain. And yeah, do you have any thoughts on the captains this year?
I think that I think they have a more mature group without Debo Samuel, and I love Debo, but and he wasn't the same last year. And especially, I just don't think that you want one of your captains going after the kicker on the sideline, and then the long snapper stepped in and Debo grabbed him by the throat or whatever it was. That just isn't, man, I don't want one of my captains doing that. It just, to me, it left a bad taste in my mouth, especially when, what was it, the next week against the Rams, he dropped a pass where he was wide open.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't the next week, but that was shortly after that.
Drops that year. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one against the Rams was late in the game. They were trailing. it's a touchdown if he catches it, and most likely a game-winning touchdown, and he dropped it, and it just was like, man, it's time for Debo to move on. It just
Yeah.
didn't have the right feel, but yeah, I'm happy with those. I don't know if I would have picked Kyle Juszczyk, because he just doesn't do much. I mean, and I love the guy, and his wife's a star, and so I like them a lot. But man, I don't know that I would have picked him. But I get, if he has that kind of clout and respect in the locker
Mhm.
room, then far be it from me to question that.
Yeah, that's what I think a lot of it is. I mean, obviously he's the best fullback in the league. You don't hear his name a lot, but he's probably definitely like a big locker room kind of personality. Him and Kittle, are basically best friends. So yeah, I think it's a good 8 there for the most part. And Diamador Lenore stepping up as a captain this year. I'm excited to see. He signed his contract extension with the Niners last season. So yeah, I'm happy to see that. Going back
And
to the
let me ask you
yeah,
something real quick.
yeah,
Um, since we're talking about Kittle and Juice and those guys, remember at the beginning of the new NFL year when the 49ers um, let Kyle Juszczyk go,
mhm,
and they brought him back a few days later. But there was this thing, and I don't know if you heard about this, but there was this thing where Sydney Warner, Fred's wife,
mhm,
went on social media and was like laughing or something like that, because there's rumors that she does not get along with Kittle's wife or Juszczyk's wife, and
really.
that she was kind of celebrating. I don't know if you heard about that, but
Uh-uh.
I haven't heard much about it since then. But I just thought that's interesting dynamic that hopefully those guys don't allow to influence the locker room if there is a beef between their wives. Hopefully it stays that way and doesn't affect the team in any way.
Mhm.
I doubt it will, and I haven't heard much about it. But there was those that where people were like, okay, this seems directed at Kristen Juszczyk,
Yeah.
but I never really heard much about it. But I just found that kind of interesting, because you're right. You've got that Grant Cohn calls the Cabo click. You've got the Kittle and Juice and some of those guys,
Mhm,
and then you've got some of the others like Warner who kind of seem to be on their own. Not in that little clique, and
mhm.
that's fine. I don't know that I would call it a clique. They're just teammates, and you're gonna bond with some guys more than you are others. So I don't see any issue with that. But
Mhm.
I didn't. Had you not heard that?
I did not hear that. I thought you were
Okay.
gonna go talk about Christian Juszczyk, just talking about how they were really sad that their time with the Niners was gonna end and everything. But yeah, that's really interesting there, that potentially Sydney Warner was kind of taking shots at her. But who
Yeah,
knows,
that's what it.
honestly, because like
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you remember last year too, when Debo's or whatever it was, Debo asking for his new contract, and all these players now posting on their Instagram. And then just a couple of times, like obviously some things were pointed at the 49ers. And then there was another thing, I don't even know what it said, but then he came out again. He's like, not everything's going to be related to football, like when I post things. So who
Right.
knows.
Yeah.
But then we
Yeah.
see Juwan Jennings again out there during the preseason. He posted like some quote from a rapper saying like, don't mess with me. But then after that, he posted the final score, 49ers beating the Chargers. So yeah, a lot of speculation. It is funny stuff though. Maybe
Yeah.
something to monitor. Who knows?
Yeah. I think some of those guys do that knowing fans are going to take this
Yeah,
and
controversy.
really run with it.
Hmm.
And then they can backtrack and go, hey, I didn't mean anything by that. But it's kind
Yeah,
of it's kind of funny to watch some of it.
it is. Yeah, it's enjoyable. All right, give me your final predictions and maybe possibly a bold prediction for 49ers Seahawks first game of the season.
All right. So today I put out the 49ers Webzone mailbag, and I reached out to Katie Mox, who she's a 49ers fan, but she works for CBS Sports. And so I asked her her thoughts on it, because she's really big into the betting stuff and Vegas and odds. And so she wrote, San Francisco enters as a slight favorite, 2.5 points, with a 58% win probability, while Seattle debuts Sam Darnold under center, a new coaching staff, and long injury list. So then she said the 49ers' continuity and proven playmakers give them the edge to cover and win in Seattle, even with Lumen Field's home field advantage. So I took that because even though I don't put a ton into Vegas, they're deadly accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they have the 49ers a slight advantage, and I had considered picking Seattle, but in the end, I was like, no, I think the 49ers are going to win this. I'm going 2017, and my hot take is going to be that Jake Moody's going to kick the game winner.
There's no way. That's almost exactly my prediction.
Really?
Yeah, I got the 49ers winning 27-24 with the Jake Moody game-winning field goal, and it's just going to make the fans go crazy. And also, I got George Kittle notching 2 touchdowns in this game with 76 yards receiving there. So that's hilarious. We both got Jake Moody up there, and I think they'd just add to the story of Jake Moody. Game-winning kick first game of the season.
Yeah, especially if the next week he comes back and misses 2 or 3 of them.
Exactly.
And it's going to be so Jake Moody.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. But yeah, last week I was actually leaning more towards the Seahawks as well. Just so many injuries that the Niners were having. But then as of, I guess, towards the middle of the week or whatever, when we started seeing everybody start coming back, everyone's healthy again, like Pooney is probably going to be playing. And then just, I think the nail on the head for me was Jawan Jennings was going to be back. And just seeing that just kind of sparked like, well, the 49ers offense really isn't in that bad of a spot now if Jennings really is going to be back. You still have Kittle out there. Purdy's still going to be the quarterback and all that. So I do have the 49ers winning. And then also just some stats to back it up. Brock Purdy against the Seahawks. He's won, I think he's 6-1 or 5-1 against the Seahawks. He's got a 112 passer rating, 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions in the 6 games, including the playoffs versus the Seahawks. So just there, he's essentially the Seahawks owner. And just same with George Kittle. I don't know the stats for him, but Kittle tends to just go off against the Seahawks. So even if it's going to be at Lumen Field, I have the 49ers winning this one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I hate the Seahawks. Hate the Rams. I hate the Cowboys.
Right.
Now I hate the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always fun to beat the Seahawks. To lose that one last year with Geno Smith leading them down the field, that stunk, man.
Yeah.
That made me so mad. But yeah, I think it's big having Jawan come back. If they can somehow get through these first 3 games, 3-0. And then get Demarcus Robinson back, I think that's going to be a huge start for them, and I think it's going to ring true. But I think that this is going to be a tough game. If they come out of here with a win, I think either way, it's going to tell us a lot about the team.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think going back also just on the defense, I thought one of the reasons why the Seahawks would win just because of the youthfulness on the 49ers defense. But I just don't think it'll be as much of a factor as the 49ers offense being out there, So I think this kind of balances it out a little bit. And there are going to be growing pains we're going to see throughout the season. Obviously, if once Marquise Siegel starts playing a little more Upton Stout, there's going to be some blown coverages here and there. But just having Robert Saleh back and just that leadership he has and just knowing how to keep a defense sound, I feel like, and just with the X's and O's, I think the 49ers defense isn't going to be as bad of a spot as I think people were kind of assuming coming into this year, just with so many players leaving, Malik Collins, all these guys just leaving and just kind of having to start from scratch now. But I think it's going to be a good season for the 49ers defense.
Yeah, I do too. I think I'm not ready to say they're back,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we'll see anything like that 2019 group, but they should be much better than they were last season.
Yeah. And the 49ers have the easiest schedule in the NFL. Have you ever put out like your record prediction for this year?
No, I never really do that. When I was a kid, I used to get, this was before the internet was born. I would buy those. Do you remember Athlons that when they would put out their,
I think so. Yeah.
Every year they would put out an NFL, I don't know.
Pick'ems.
Yeah. Well, it was like each team, they would break down each team and they would give their predictions and the schedule and all that. Cause I never lived in the Bay Area. So I didn't have access to the newspapers and things like that everybody else did.
Mhm.
And so, as far as covering the team. And so I relied on things like athlons. I didn't even have I didn't get cable until I was out of college, because like my family lived out in the country, and
Mhm.
and so we I didn't have ESPN and those kinds of things, so I really relied on stuff like athlons. And so I would go through and pick who if I thought they were going to win this game or whatever. But I haven't done that in years. I mean, Ant and I on the Red and Bold show several weeks ago, we did when the schedule came out, I guess
Mhm.
we did we went game by game, and who has the advantage, but we didn't do
When
one law, who's going to win, who's going to lose.
Mhm.
So neither of us are really into that.
Right. All right. Oh, I'm projecting them to go 11-6 this year. So we'll see if I think it's doable because I mean, it's just like I said, just a lot of the growing pains. We just don't know exactly how the 49ers are going to pan out
Yeah,
this year, but I do
right.
project them going over 500 at least. So we'll see how it is. But before we end the show, since you just kind of talked about your journey as a 49er fan, can you just kind of like fill me in how you became a 49er fan since you didn't really live in the Bay Area and all that?
Yeah, so I was a kid living in Houston, Texas, and I was a big fan of the Oilers.
Mhm.
And this was when they had Earl Campbell and Bum Phillips, the Love You Blue Oilers. And so probably long before you were born, I'm guessing. And and so that was my team, and they 2 years in a row were heartbroken, lost in the AFC Championship game to the Steelers, who went on and won the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Well, my family moved away in 81. We moved away from Houston, and the Oilers traded Earl Campbell to the Saints.
Mhm.
And this was the Saints teams that were so bad that the fans wore bags over their heads and called them the Aints. And so I was like, all right, I'm done with the Oilers. I'm picking whoever wins this Super Bowl is going to be my new favorite team. And so thankfully the 49ers won, or else I would have been a Bengals fan my whole life. So
So
I'm
this was
very
81
glad for
then,
that.
first Super Bowl?
Huh?
Was this the first Super Bowl then?
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
And so I did this. I've done a couple of things. I wrote this thing on trying to promote Roger Craig to be in the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
And then I did a podcast series on it as well, and interviewed a lot of, former 49ers.
Steve Young, I've
And
seen a couple of those.
yeah. And so I interviewed George Seifert,
Mhm.
and he asked the same question, how'd you become a 49ers fan? Because he asked if I lived in the Bay Area. And so when I told him that story, I said, thank you for beating the Bengals, because I would have hated to have been a Bengals fan. And he just started laughing. And so, yeah, it's kind of weird. And now I cover the team, but I live in the Chicago area. So but these days it's easy to do that.
Yeah, it's easy to become a fan of anybody. Just
Yeah.
yeah, so much social media and everything. If you don't mind, how did you get into 49ers Webzone as well?
So this I'm aging myself and telling too many stories on myself, but in 1999, what year were you born?
I was born in 2003.
Okay, holy crap. So in 99 was the first time that I had internet
Mhm.
at my house. And I mean the internet was pretty new altogether then, but that was the first time that I had it. And I'm just typing in like 49er stuff because I'm like hungry for this news. I don't live in the Bay Area, so my newspapers don't cover this, and the internet was new to me. And so I came across 49ers Webzone, and I liked it because not only did they have writers who wrote, but if you had beat writers like Mayoko who would write something, um, 49ers Webzone has this thing where they kind of bring in a lot of those articles. So it's like your one stop shop.
Mhm.
And so I've been reading them for years. And then in 2021, I went on there to read some stuff and just saw that they were looking for writers. And I was like, So I applied, and the editor David, he asked me, can you send me something you've written? Well, the only thing that I'd written is I've been a public speaker for a while, so I had written some things on how to be a better public speaker, how to give a good speech or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I sent him that, and he wrote back and said, "No, I mean something 49ers related." And I said, "Okay, well, let me write it, and then I'll send it." So I wrote something. He was like, "This is great. Can you can you start?" And I said, "Sure." And they weren't even paying their writers at that time, so wow. I was doing it for free.
That's awesome. That's a great story, man. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being on. It means a lot. This is my first time going live, and I'm trying to, get things more going now with First and 49ers this year. I'm just out of college now, so I'm trying to grow things. So
nice.
I'd love to have you back on again eventually, if you'd be cool with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this was a great podcast. 49ers Seahawks, 1:05 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. We'll see if our predictions are correct. Hopefully Jake Moody does kick the game-winning field goal, or a little less stressful situation where we're up by like 14.
Yeah, right.
Make sure everybody go check out my 2025 hype video on YouTube. And again, make sure to follow Marc Adams on all of his social medias, YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Read his articles there on 49ers Webzone as well. He has some great stuff on there. And just make sure to follow First and 49ers on all social media platforms as well. And as always, go Niners and stay faithful, baby. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Touchdown! San Francisco!